Hello, everyone. Today I'm with the amazing Dr. Anne Goldsmith, and she's going to tell us. Her company is called Behaviour First Consultancy, and she's an expert on dealing with children and teenagers. And she's also going to give us some tips on lockdown and how to deal with kids when you're on lockdown. So, Dr. Anne, welcome, and please introduce yourself to everyone. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi everyone, hi Janine. Thank you very much for inviting me on your podcast today. It's a wonderful day, sun shining, beautiful, beautiful day. I'm Anne Goldsmith and I'm a parent, I'm a positive behaviour consultant and a parenting coach. And my company is Behaviour First Consultancy.
Awesome. And may I ask you, why do you do what you do?
So my why, okay.
Yeah.
My why, I have two teenagers. My son is nearly 17 and my daughter is 14. Now, they're amazing teenagers now. However, when they were younger, both of them at different times in their lives displayed really disruptive and negative behaviour. So as a mum, as a parent, I had to deal with all the emotions that created in me about not feeling good enough, feeling like I was a bad mother, a bad parent. It was all my fault. And trying to figure out how to cope and how to deal with that. But also, more importantly, trying to understand my two children and what was going on with them and how I could help them, how I could support them. So that's where my first why comes from. And also I've got a background in teaching, 16 years teaching, and throughout my teaching career I have taught many children who have displayed negative and disruptive behaviours in the classroom, and I've turned their behaviour around. And I know that actually it's an area that needs so much focus and support, so that these children, these students can be given a chance and we can understand what's going on to support them to transform their behaviour. So those are my whys.
Awesome. And would you mind explaining why? Because when we were younger, we didn't have the tools to understand what was going on, and we didn't have the experience. And that's a problem that often teenagers and children don't tell what's wrong because they probably don't even know how to express it, or they are scared to say it because maybe they're getting bullied or cyberbullied. Like, how do you help them?
Sure. So yes, I mean, I'm 50, so things were very different when I was at school, and we didn't have social media. Yes, we had exams. We had, some of the similarities that they have now, but society is a very different place. And I think now there are so many other factors. As you say, there's bullying. Now, bullying, yes, that happened. That's been happening for years. But I think a lot of the time things have changed. Maybe, as you say, it's something that children don't always tell their parents or don't tell other people, and they hold on to it and suffer in silence on their own. And there's social media now, so there's another outside influence that has an impact on what children and teenagers are experiencing today. What I do, I listen. It sounds simple and it sounds obvious, but I just listen to what they have to say. And we can all say we're listening, but I know, even myself, I've claimed to be listening, but not truly listening. So I listen and I hear what they're saying, and also what they're not saying. I can get a lot from children and teenagers when they don't tell me things, but it's about listening and understanding and identifying their struggles.
Awesome. Listening is very powerful. And how would you say the difference between listening and listening with hearing what they have to say? Like, what's the difference? Like, because as adults, we tend to have a solution and we tend to hop in. And I guess that's wrong. We need to let them talk and maybe ask the right questions, but like, how do you do that, as you're the expert?
Well, no, what you've said is exactly right. So often, adults and children, when we listen, before that person's finished speaking, we've already got our idea of what we want to say next. So we're not truly listening because we're just waiting to say our next part of that conversation. So it's about listening, giving that person time to explain and say what they want to say. And as you said, not necessarily stepping in with a solution, but just listening and unpicking the words that are said and how it's said to then be able to move forward.
Yes, I have learned to do the same as I'm a therapist. So with some words I think, that's an interesting choice of words. Yeah, but I don't know about teenagers and children because I only work with adults. So, and you said before that there are some problems with children and teenagers that you usually work with. What are the most common issues you work with? The most common, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So when I started, interestingly, my business has evolved quite a lot over the last four years or so. And when I started, I only ever worked with children or teenagers displaying negative and disruptive behaviour. That was it. It was different types of negative and disruptive behaviour. But in the last, I'd say 8 to 12 months, I have worked with more children suffering with anxiety, depression, mental illness, mental health issues, should I say, eating disorders, self-harm, pressures of exams, being bullied, low confidence, low self-esteem, not feeling good enough. It's a vast array of issues that they face, that teenagers and young children face today.
And do you have any advice for parents or carers to recognize the signs of children and teenagers struggling with something?
Yes.
Instead, like teenagers are often grumpy, but it's also like an hormonal thing. But how do you recognize when it's like, oh, something is off? Maybe I need some professional help.
That's a really good question, actually, because as you say, teenagers that can be grumpy, or maybe have what we call attitude and be quite quiet or sullen at times. Not all the times, but not all the time, but sometimes that can be the case. And it's important to observe your child for any differences, so any changes in behaviour. Obviously, children and teenagers, as they get older, their behaviours change when hormones kick in anyway. But it's about looking for those changes in behaviour. If your child was quite positive and quite happy generally, and happy to go to school, or happy with their schoolwork, or in various parts of their life, what they do, and then suddenly they change. If they maybe become more, I would term more snappy, so less tolerant when you speak, maybe outbursts of anger, maybe often it can be sleeping more, it can also be sleeping less. There are so many different things that sort of sound the same, but it's about noticing those changes, noticing changes in your child. And as parents, we know our children better than anyone, and you'll pick up on things that are different, and think, oh, actually they weren't doing that before. So it's looking for differences, for changes in their behaviour initially.
Amazing, great, thank you for the great tip. Also, Dr. Anne has so many videos. She has at least 9 YouTube videos, and you can find the videos also on her Facebook and website. Also Facebook, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I have been watching them. The one I love the most is sorry seems to be the hardest word. And that's very interesting, because as children tend to put their parents or their carers as superheroes,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to think they did everything right. But then in the video you explain the importance of own it. And if you make a mistake as a parent, or like you were saying, one day you were grumpy, you just apologize. And can you tell us why it's important for children to see that you are human as a parent, and you make mistakes and you own them? So can you tell us more about the importance about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a parent, as I say. I'm a behaviour consultant, a parenting coach. But do I get things wrong? Oh, gosh, yes. Of course. I'm human. I'm not a superhero. I'm not superhuman. I'm human. I get things wrong. And so I will, I've said and done things. In fact, I think last week, when my teenagers weren't getting up to get ready to do their work, I started moaning and nagging and said, come on, get out of bed, and just kept saying, come on now, get out of bed, and just constantly in their ear and moaning. And it's not how I normally am, but like I say, I'm normal, I'm human, we all do it. And I started to raise my voice, and I'm not somebody that raises my voice or shouts, come on now. And then both of my two separately got really quite upset with me and quite annoyed. And then they said, why are you always moaning? You're always grumpy. And it was those phrases that made me stop and think, actually, what am I doing? This isn't how how I've said to be, and this is how I am. And I took a step back and thought, do you know what? They're right. I'm being grumpy. And then I thought a bit more about it and realised that actually these were days where I was busy and I had quite a lot of my own workload to get through. And I realised that I was actually transferring my need to get things done to my teenagers. And so I owned it. I took responsibility, and I said to them, I'm really sorry. I realised I was nagging and moaning at you and being grumpy, but actually you're doing really well. I'm really proud of you. You're getting up, you're getting your work done. I was just feeling under pressure because of the things I had to do, and I was basically taking it out on you. I'm sorry. And they went, yeah, we know, because they know me well, and we have that relationship, that conversation. But they appreciated it. They said, thanks, Mum. And it's a really important thing to do on other levels as well, because it helps them to self-regulate. It helps them when they're feeling under pressure with the things that have an impact on their life. So school, exams, friendships, whatever it is for them, it's all relative. But then if they realise that in fact that makes them behaving in a different way, and they might need to stop and think, actually I need to think about what I'm doing and how I'm behaving, that teaches them. So I'm modelling the behaviour I want to see from them. So it works on so many levels.
Awesome. Because as you said, even if we are mindset and we understand why we do as humans, why we do, we're not immune from anxiety, from what's happening right now in these unprecedented times. So it affects us. The only thing is, when you work with mindset, and you're more aware of your emotions. So the thing is, maybe we have better tools to deal than if we weren't expert in this field, but still it affects us. It just is like, oh, I'm feeling this. So we are more aware of the emotions. So now you teach these tools to children, teenagers, and the carer and parents, no?
Yes, definitely. That's the thing, as you say, because of what we do, we have the tools, and we recognise when we're feeling a certain way, when we're feeling demotivated, when we're feeling a bit flat, those things. And that's the thing, we know then, we've got that self-awareness, and we know how to change things. And those are the strategies that I help children and parents and educators with. But yeah, that's true.
Awesome. And you said that you're two teenagers, and how are they like now? And what is their behavior like?
Right, so yeah, so I'll start with my son, who's nearly 17. Now, don't get me wrong, they're teenagers. We're all human. We have our moments, but my son, we have a great relationship. So we both love martial arts. So we're both black belt first dans in our martial arts, different martial arts. So we have that in common, which I absolutely love, because that's something that me and him will always have in common. And it's something that him and his dad don't have in common. So it's a really nice thing to have in common. And we do some sparring together, and we train together, and and he'll say, "Oh, you're my strong mum," and we'll practice together. And actually, we spend a lot of time together, which is great. I love that, because I'm sure there will come a time in the not too distant future where that will change, where his priorities differ, and that's the way of the world. But we get on really well. We spend a lot of time together, and he talks to me about things. He asks me everything, so I feel very, very, very lucky and very proud. And my daughter, who's 14, again, I spend a lot of time with her. We have lots of sort of girl time together, and in fact, spending time with her is like being with my best friend. She's just so easy to be with. We have fun, we have a laugh, and again, she'll talk to me and ask me everything. We talk about everything together, and say I feel so lucky with my two teenagers. I have such a strong bond with them, such a strong relationship, and it feels like a big privilege for me. Very.
Awesome. Awesome. And may I ask you, do you ever have moments where things don't work for you, or on your own teenagers? Like,
oh yes, yes, definitely. And it's a bit like we said before about saying sorry. I'll say something or do something, and then I realise that actually that wasn't the way to go, and I'll admit it, and I'll say sorry. I might not realise straight away, because that's just how things go. But I do apologise, and I talk to them. I give them a voice, and I let them know that their opinion matters. So if I say something to them, and they then say, "Oh, well, you said this and you said that," I'll listen. I don't just say, "Well, don't talk to me like that," or whatever. I will listen to what they've got to say, because it's important. They're human beings. They're just as important as me and everyone else.
yes, yes. And I like to believe that I heard this phrase once, and it was beautiful, and I've been trying to use it as a philosophy of life. Everybody we meet in life can teach us something that we don't know, and even a child. And I also specialize in healing the inner child. As adults, we still have that little child that needs to be listened, and a little child can teach us to play with things, to be that like. But lately I realized how serious I've become, and I was like, no, I don't like it. I want to be more playful. So even a small child can teach us how to pretend to drink a fake tea from a plastic cup. So, and they can teach us to be more open and more a bigger fantasy. Like, so I believe everybody can teach us something we don't know, including children.
Definitely, I completely agree with you. We can learn so much from children of all ages, and like you say, young children, their innocence is just wonderful, and they're almost so free. They're so free and natural. But we forget, as adults, we all started off like that. We were all free and carefree, and did what we wanted without fear, without any sort of hesitation, because that's what being a child is like. It's that freedom, that natural, just doing everything. And it's as we get older, like you say, we, depending on our job and just as we get older, more responsibilities, we often become, as you say, you know, more serious, and we forget to have fun and we forget to relax. And, you know, I have fun with my teenagers, and I can remember a situation, and I was just crying with laughter. I couldn't stop laughing. We were at a restaurant together, just the three of us, and I was trying to pay, and I had tears streaming down my eyes because I was laughing, and my two teenagers were stood there sort of shaking their head looking at me as I'm trying to hand my credit card over to pay. And they just, and we sort of finally finished and we walked away, and they both shook their head and went, oh, sometimes you're more of a child than we are. And I said, but isn't it good? You know, and they went, yeah, I suppose so. But so it's important to have that, you know, that time where you don't take yourself so seriously, and you know, because actually when we do that as adults and we think, actually, just have a bit of a laugh and not take ourselves so seriously, we realize how much more relaxed we are about the more serious aspects of our life when we do that. So
yes,
it's important.
If I could get a degree, I probably will get a PhD in overthinking.
I think that's the same for so many adults. I think that's the same for so many adults. You know, as I say, you know, as we get older, we tend to think more and overthink things, and, you know, worry about what everybody else thinks and compare ourselves to everybody else. I think that's, you know, that's part of what happens to many of us as we get older, which is like why you say how important it is that we look at children and learn from them. And I can remember my son when he was about, I think he was about 10 years old, and we were just talking about, I can't remember exactly what, but it must have had something to do with children and adults. And I remember he said to me, why is it that adults think they know more than us just because they're adults? And I think that was about nearly 7 years ago. He's about 10, maybe a bit younger. And I just remember those words stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, that's a really interesting statement, a really interesting question. You know, why do people think they know more because they're adults? And he said, there are so many things that I think I could, you know, tell adults that they don't get right. I thought, what an interesting insight from a 10-year-old.
Yeah, and nowadays a 10-year-old can teach us how to work an iPad.
Oh gosh, yes. My son, he's my technology guru. He's the one I go to when I need help with technology, definitely. But it just reminds me of a time, not that, must have been about a year ago. He was changing the bedding on his bed, and I can't remember why, but I was sat talking to him on his bedroom floor, and he was changing the bedding, and he was putting the pillowcase on. And I laughed, and I said to him, what are you doing? I said, you're putting that on so cack-handedly. And he looked at me strangely, and he said, is that even a proper word? And I said, well, it was in my day. And I said, but what are you doing? I said, I was joking and laughing with him at the time. And I said, watching you do that is really painful. And then he said, but do you know what, Mum? That's exactly how I feel when I watch you do anything to do with technology. So obviously I laughed and said, touche, fair point. You've got me there. So. Yes,
and also teenagers especially, and young adults around early 20s, we had at that time so much energy to be the change in the world. The big changes are usually started from teenagers or early 20s. It's like they have this energy, they have this passion. And while we adults were like thinking, oh, well, I love that idea, but I need to go to work, I need to pay the bills and the mortgage. While the kids are like, they have this energy, this passion, and they are the change makers. So I believe we should listen to them. I've learned so much from all these young people who are teaching us to be more environmental friendly.
Yes.
And they are doing it. So I really estimate all this, like Greta, I believe she's an amazing person, and she's at her age. I was thinking about, oh, how should I dress this Saturday? When should I do? She's trying to make the world better. So kudos to people like her. And so it's true, we can learn so much from young people, even if they don't have the same experience, but they can see the world with a different perspective.
Definitely.
We
And
have the
actually,
experience.
yes, definitely. I mean, my two teenagers, they talk to me a lot about what it's like to be a teenager. You know, my son, a teenage son, teenage girl, daughter. You know, what it's like to be my teenager, what it's like at school, the pressures, all the different things. So I listen to them a lot, and they give me a really great insight into the minds of children and teenagers and what they go through, and from their perspective. So actually they help me sort of feed into what I do through my business. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, you have two teachers at home.
Yes, indeed, they
And
inspire me.
oh yeah, I can hear you're very passionate about them. And may I ask you, how are they living the lockdown and this coronavirus?
Sure. So they're both they're both coping very well. They are struggling to get up at school time, but actually, I think it's really important during this time for children to have, and families to have a structure, a sort of routine
Mm-hmm.
to keep everyone motivated. But it's really important, I think, for that to be flexible. So they've both actually found their way of working that works for them. So they're not getting up first thing in the morning, but I'm fine with that. But they're getting all of their work done. My daughter is so she gets her work slightly differently to my son. So she's been given subject packs to work through. So a whole sort of set of lessons on English and maths and so on. And she finds it easier, rather than sticking to her school timetable of English, maths, science, whatever. She finds it easier to work through one whole topic. So she said she can concentrate better rather than switching from one subject to another when she's at home. She's working through all of the maths work first, and then all of the history and so on. Whereas my son, he finds it easier to follow sort of the subjects almost as his timetable. And they're both getting the work done. They're just sort of finding their new normal, if you like, and what works for them. But they both said how it's quite difficult to motivate themselves when it's when they're not at school with their friends and with their teachers. But my daughter, something she's been doing is she's been going online with her friends, so a group sort of Skype call or something. So they get to see each other, they get to chat, socialise, and then they do their homework together at the same time. So they can help each other and support each other as well, which has been brilliant, actually. And I can remember hearing them all giggling and chatting, but they're working as well, which is perfect. And it's a great motivator for all of them.
Yes. And also I've been reading a lot on how it's important to try to keep your life as much as it was before. So she's like basically doing a study group, even if it's not live, but it's just online. But it's better than, because at least the mind thinks, oh, okay, we're doing a study group and they're having fun, they're giggling.
That's it. And it's a way to motivate each other, because something for teenagers, for all children, not being at school, yes, they're not learning, they're not doing this, they're not sort of got their teachers there, but they're not socializing. And children of all ages, their friends are pretty much the most important people in their lives. So not being around their friends every day will have an impact on how they feel and their motivation and just their general day-to-day feelings. So actually something like that is a really great way to catch up and keep up with their friends.
Awesome. And I guess also you are working mainly online and via phone with your clients,
Yes,
correct?
yes. So for me, I work. I'm based from home anyway, so a lot of what I do, I'm based at home. I obviously go out to clients, to their homes and to schools. So obviously, I'm not doing that, but I'm able to deliver my services online, and I'm sort of relaunching some services this week actually, just to support parents in this very unusual time and difficult time for many people as well. So it's, for me, it's, you know, it's quite it's different, but it's not a huge difference. And I'm actually enjoying the slower pace of life, I'll be honest. I'm quite enjoying how things are, and having time to focus on my business and within my business, but also having more time to do things that I think, oh, I've been meaning to do that for ages, and different things that I've not got around to doing. My daughter and I were saying that later on today we're going to have some, play Scrabble and have some games of cards and do a face pack and things like that. So
Nice.
it's just, taking that time to do more of the fun stuff as well.
Awesome, awesome. And I will put all your details in the description, so anybody who wants to
Lovely.
contact you can just click on the thing. But I hear you're also writing an ebook. Tell me about that.
Yes, I am. I'm currently writing an ebook. It's I'm not going to give too much away, but it's an ebook for parents. It's to support parents with their children's and teenagers' behaviour, and it's to help parents understand about the behaviours, where they're coming from, and how they can really identify them and communicate with them and reconnect everyone, really. It's about reconnecting the family and rebuilding those relationships. So.
Awesome. Yeah, because right now with the lockdown, I have the thing that I have the belief you can choose your friends. So you choose people that are similar to you, but family, what happens to us? And despite we love them, we are all different. So if you put a family close in a lockdown with different views on the world and different beliefs, that's difficult. So it's very important to connect.
So.
Yeah, and also, what do you say about parents who project their own desires on children? Like, how do you realize that a parent is trying to push their child to do what they wanted to do when they were children, or they wish they could? Like, how can you help a parent or a child going through this situation?
So that comes back to the one-to-one sessions that I have with the child or the teenager. From what they say, I listen and can sort of identify where that feeling is coming from. But obviously, I also speak to the parents on a one-to-one basis as well. So I will sort of relay that part of the conversation. And in fact, through talking to parents, and when I give them various strategies to support their child, they actually, the way my approach and the way things work, they actually realize themselves if they are playing a part in the situation and how their child's feeling. So it all, through working with the child, I work with the parent and with the family, so everyone works together in a sense to improve the situation and to transform the behaviour, and they realise that they all have a part to play.
Yes, and to be their own authentic selves and to be accepted for who they are.
Yes.
Awesome. Anne, it was amazing to have you today. And is anything else you would like to tell people who would like to contact you? Like how they can reach you? What's the best way? Shall they send an email, or also on your website there is your phone number? What's the best way to contact you?
Right. So I like you mentioned earlier, everything that I do, I can do online, and I'm actually just going to, over the next couple of days, just relaunch some new services that will help parents and children and teenagers at this time. So I will be making videos and launching those, but everyone can contact me via my social media platforms, which I will let you have. But
Awesome.
an easy way to get in touch with me is via my Facebook business page, which is facebook.com/Behaviour First Consultancy. They can email me on Annie_Goldsmith@hotmail.com, and they can also phone me on my mobile number, which is 07754 882127. But I will obviously give you all of that information, and I know you're going to include that on the podcast. So, but just if they look me up, they'll be able to find me, and please get in touch because I'm here to help. That's what I do.
And once you publish that program, will it be on your website?
Yes, it will be on my website, but the first place to look would be my my business page, LinkedIn and Twitter. Those are my main ones, but yes, it will also go on my website as well. But there's technical issues involved with that, so that then I have to actually ask my husband, because he's my technical person regarding my website. So
Awesome. We are looking forward to see that material. Thank you very so much, Anne, for today, and I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a very lovely day. Thank you for listening, and please contact Anne if you have any questions.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Bye, everyone.